Welcome, everyone. My name is Melanie Schlotterbeck. I work with the nonprofit Hills for Everyone, and I'm also in charge of the Southland Regional Group for Power in Nature. And I'm super excited to have one of my dear friends with us today, Bill Kowalik. He and I met a long time ago, probably late 90s, early 2000s. And he and his then wife Jill were deeply involved in the preservation of Powder Canyon, which is in the Puente Hills. And Kathy is now deeply involved in many things. But after Jill passed, he met wonderful Kathy, and they've been all over the world traveling and bicycling across the US and other areas and lived in Australia. And now they're up in Bend, Oregon, and have been there for 8 years. And Bill has a long history in science, and I'll let you give a quick intro to your history there, Bill. But apparently, the dark skies were calling to Bill in Oregon, and he's one of the founding members of Dark Sky Oregon. And so, because our plants and wildlife respond to human activities, this seemed quite appropriate to discuss as it relates to 30 by 30 and protecting biodiversity and building climate resilience for our communities, plant and animal and human communities. So, Bill, I will pass it along to you to not only give any details you want shared on your history, but then also take it away when you're ready to present.
Okay, thanks very much, Melanie. And so my background is actually geology and geophysics, and I worked in industry for 35 years before retiring in 2017. My wife Kathy and I moved to Bend, Oregon from Australia, where we had been for 8 years in Perth, where we experienced fairly dark skies in the Oregon outback, and came to Oregon, which is a state that has its own so-called outback. Although the people speak better English over there, over here, I guess. Well, more, not better, more understandable. So Kathy and I became involved with the group Dark Sky Oregon, and we actually helped to form the group. And so I'd like to spend about 20 minutes here giving you a rundown on what that's all about. And I'll just start with that. Let's see, is that
Yep, we see it.
sharing? Okay, great. So Dark Sky Oregon is a all-volunteer, independent, nonprofit 501c3 group, now 6 years old. Our mission is to preserve Oregon's dark skies and to diminish light pollution for good reasons: health, safety, and well-being of all life. So our goals involve educational outreach about light pollution and its solutions. We encourage, for example, voluntary change of outdoor lighting. We encourage update of lighting ordinances. We measure sky glow, which is a science project I won't say much about. And we support certification of something called dark sky places. So just to maybe, let's see, I'm not forwarding here for some reason. Oh, there it goes. So little step back, what is light pollution? Light pollution, classically, we think of four aspects. We think of sky glow, which is a brightening of the night sky because of light escaping upward. For example, in this diagram, here's a street light with the intended area to be lit, but the street light is poorly designed, so there's a lot of light coming over here, trespassing into a house. This poor pedestrian has direct glare, even outside the area to be lit. We have bright light scattered from the atmosphere that went up and is now coming back down, blocking out the stars. So we have the sky glow, we have glare, we have light trespass, and there's another aspect called clutter, which is you're driving down the highway and you see a lot of lights and in a clutter, and it's very confusing and you lose sense of orientation. So those are aspects of light pollution. And an example of light pollution, sky glow in particular, in Central Oregon, this is a picture taken about 20 miles away looking at the horizon, where 3 different cities, Bend, Redmond, and Prineville here in Central Oregon, each have their own glowing sky glow above them. And you can be sure that people down in these cities looking up don't actually see these stars above because the glow blots them out. We see them from 20 miles away where the picture was taken. And the sort of the key part of this presentation is the impact of light pollution on the wild ecosystem. And here's a statement by Travis Longcore, who's a professor at UCLA. He says, ecosystems are very complex. When artificial light alters light-dark cycles, and in turn circadian rhythms, the whole choreography of biological life is jeopardized. So there are, if we look at the percentage of animals that are nocturnal and which are therefore likely to be impacted by artificial light at night, 100% of bat species, 90% of amphibians, 60% of mammals and invertebrates, and even 30% of primates. So how does artificial light at night impact these species? Confuse celestial navigation when you have bright lights around, causes disorientation in movements. You end up with attraction or repulsion behaviors. It impacts predator-prey relationships. Some species are benefited and others not. Light at night changes the activity times of diurnal species. And the key thing is light at night interrupts circadian rhythms that govern various biological rhythms: breeding, nesting, migration, and foraging. So jumping ahead, how do we try to reduce light pollution? The Dark Sky International group has a community-friendly lighting program with 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. First of all, is the light useful? All light that you have outdoors should have a clear purpose. A lot of people just put up lights for no good reason. Is the light targeted? It needs to be shielded and down so you don't actually see the bulb when you're horizontal with the shield. Is the light at a relatively low level? And is the light on timers or motion detectors? It doesn't have to be necessarily on all night long for security. A motion detector can help. And a key part that is only recognized in the last, say, 10 years is that the lights really need to be warm colored. Amber or yellow, amber in particular, is really preferable, and we'll talk about why. So here's a diagram emphasizing the idea of lights which are not shielded, which scatter light up into the sky or horizontally, are very bad. If you add shielding and then make it a warm color, and then perhaps change the intensity, make it dimmer, or put a timer on it, everything is much improved. Here's an example of a fire station with unshielded lights, and then after fixing them by shielding them, it makes a huge difference. You minimize glare for people coming in, and there's less light going up into the atmosphere. Some examples of good lighting are from the city of Flagstaff, Arizona. Flagstaff is actually the first international dark sky community from 2001. Flagstaff has the most stringent lighting controls, and that's primarily because there's a significant observatory, astronomical observatory, U.S. Naval Observatory, just west of town. So Flagstaff in general requires amber lights outdoors. You can see an amber street light here. And amber makes the city a lot more pleasing to the eye. Where color rendition is required, such as in this gas station, they allow in Flagstaff white lights, but notice that the light doesn't extend very far beyond the canopy. So Flagstaff, Arizona, a good example. So I mentioned amber light. So why is amber light so preferred? And you can think of the inverse of that. Amber is good because it has no visible blue. So the story here is, why is the blue part of light at night bad? And there are about four reasons, which I'll go through here. One is blue light scatters a lot more in the atmosphere. So here's a diagram of wavelength across the visible from blue to red. And this is the percent of scattering of direct sunlight. So it's well known that, as this diagram shows, that blue light scatters preferentially compared to longer wavelengths in the visible. So that means, which is of course why the sky is blue, that's scattering blue preferentially. So if we have a lot of blue light at night from a lamp that puts out light that looks white to our eyes and therefore has a mix of red, green, and blue, the presence of the blue light at night will scatter preferentially and cause more sky glow than the longer wavelengths. Another reason that blue light is an issue at night is that it impacts our sleep. So again, this diagram shows wavelength across the horizontal and relative sensitivity vertically. So if we look at this solid line here, that's the spectral response of a blue-rich LED. So these are lights that look kind of bluish white to your eyes. So it has a broad peak through green, yellow, and red, but significantly has this very strong peak in the blue. And that peak turns out to be almost lined up perfectly with the dotted line here, which is human circadian sensitivity, which is melatonin sensitivity. So the point here is that blue light at night is lined up almost perfectly with our circadian sensitivity. And that's because of, that's evolved through evolution of life on Earth. And let me show this animation, which we put together along with several other 30-second animations as public service announcements. So the point here is blue light during daytime and warm light at night is something that we had through evolution. So I'll play this, and there's audio, and hopefully everyone will get the audio. It's 30 seconds long.
Since the dawn of time, life evolved to adapt to the lighted environments around them. Cool blue light from the sun and warmer light from the moon at night, lacking the blue color. Unfortunately, humans have now brought that blue light back through the use of white light bulbs. This has led to disruption in the natural cycles of many life forms, including people. So switch to yellow and amber colored lights at night to give us all a break.
Right, so another reason that blue light at night has an issue is that it preferentially causes glare in our eyes and of course in the eyes of wildlife. So, and that's because of scattering of the light in the eye. So the short wavelengths of visible light, namely the blue, scatter preferentially in our eye, in particular off the cornea and the lens, and cause a defocusing of whatever you're looking at. And it's a particular issue for people, older folks. And another reason that blue light at night is a problem is that blue wavelengths contribute to insect decline. We're probably all familiar with the concept, or what we see, of moths circling lights at night. And that's because the moths sense in the ultraviolet, the blue and the green wavelengths, not so much in the yellow and red. So that when you have like an old-fashioned high-pressure sodium lamp, which has this yellow-orange color, or an modern amber LED, you don't attract the moths, and so the moths may be off happily pollinating instead of circling and dying of exhaustion. So here's another animation that makes that point. So this is nighttime pollinators and the color of artificial light. It's titled "Bees Get All the Credit."
Bees get all the credit for pollinating, but did you know we moths handle the night shift? Pollinating at night is thankless work, and it's dangerous too, especially when those bright white outdoor lights are around. We just can't help circling them until we fall apart from exhaustion, and it takes the simplest of fixes to prevent it. See these amber lights? You humans can, but I can't. I mean, is this thing even on? So remember, when you turn on those bright white lights, you're getting in the way of some of nature's most important work. Do us all a favor and switch to amber. The birds and bees will thank you too.
And then here's another animation regarding bird migration.
Okay, everyone, today is migration day. Is everyone ready? All right, we'll be taking off near sunset and flying all night.
This is my first migration. Why do we go at night?
We go at night for smoother flying and to keep the hawks off our backs. We'll also be guided by the position of the sunset, the North Star, and Orion's belt. Watch out for light pollution from cities that blot out the stars at night. We lose a lot of good birds attracted to those lit up buildings. Maybe one day, all cities will have lights out programs during our migration. So fly safe and keep singing. Okay.
Okay, and for a deeper dive into the impact of light pollution on terrestrial wildlife, I could really recommend this YouTube video, which is an interview or comments by Travis Longcore from UCLA. And it was a couple of years ago, but it's a presentation to Audubon Everglades, but it's really, I think, still quite relevant. So I think, can we post that into the chat?
The link. Yeah, why don't we pull it off your presentation at the end and then I'll put it in the minutes for the meeting.
All right. Okay, so here's a series of maps I'd like to show. So this is a map showing calculated sky glow over Southern California. So this is LA County down to the Mexican border, San Diego County, Orange County. So this map shows a calculated amount of sky glow over this region based on NASA nighttime satellite images, like the satellite passes over about 2 a.m., records uplight, and then a researcher, this guy Christian Lugenbiel from Flagstaff, calculated how much sky glow there would be given that uplight. And he's modified the uplight in the model to assume everything, all the light coming up is at 3000 Kelvin correlated color temperature. So that's a light that is commonly used in streetlights nowadays, and it looks fairly white to our eyes. So it has a mix of red, green, and blue. So if you look at the scale over here, most of the LA basin is in this white, these colors over here. And that means, of course, that there's no stars visible. In fact, the Milky Way is not visible everywhere, according to the model, inside this dashed blue line. So that's an approximation of the current situation with 3000 Kelvin and imperfect shielding. We have 15% uplight due to typical shielding, which is namely imperfect. So now if we change the model to give us zero uplight, in other words, we assume all over this region the shielding is implemented, we get an improved picture. So that now the area where the Milky Way is not visible is smaller, and we've shifted to some extent upwards in this color range, namely toward the darker sky site. So if I go back and then forward, you get an idea of that change. Then there's one more picture, and that is if we take away the 3000 Kelvin and assume that all the lights are amber color, which remember, amber means there's no visible blue, we get a much more dramatic result. So this is the case where we assume all the lights in the whole Southland are converted to amber, and they're also very well shielded. So we still have a big patch of LA and part of Orange County, other counties here, where the Milky Way is not visible. But it's a much better, we'll jump back to the previous story, a much better situation, because the skies are now, even in LA, there's places over here where it's almost, Milky Way is almost visible. And visibility of the Milky Way is kind of given as a proxy for, being able to see the stars. So anyway, thought you might find that interesting. Okay, another aspect of dark skies and light pollution is the economics of dark skies. So it turns out that astronomy-based recreation and tourism can be a big deal for certain areas where the skies are dark, because people stay overnight to see the stars, and visits can be spread out to non-peak tourist seasons, and it's increasingly common. And places that are certified as dark sky places are particularly searched out, because like 80% of the people in the US cannot see the Milky Way where they live. And so they hear about, oh, a certified dark sky place. Let's go see it. Let's go see it. You know, it's in Colorado or Utah or someplace, or Oregon. And so there have been some studies done on the, what is the dollar value of dark skies? And one that was done like 6 years ago by some profs from Missouri State calculated that the astro-tourism to national parks and monuments on the Colorado Plateau, so all 4 states, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, big area, lots of national parks and monuments, will bring in $580 million per year in many jobs just because of the dark sky tourism. That's on top of everything else. So that was a real eye-opener for tourist groups, not only in the United States and Oregon, but around the world. And Utah over here is bragging they have the most dark sky places, certified dark sky places on Earth, and they have around 30 of them now. We in Oregon have 7, and as I'll show you later, there's I think 5 in all of California. So there's a lot of potential for California. So I've been talking about international dark sky places. So what are they? So that's a program that Dark Sky International founded in 2001 to encourage communities, parks, and protected areas around the world, like national parks, to preserve and protect dark sky sites through responsible lighting policies and education. There are categories of dark sky places listed here, and there's a series of steps to get international dark sky, in this case park certification. So I won't say much more about that, so here's a list of the certified dark sky places to date in California. So the 3 parks, Death Valley, Joshua Tree, and Anza Borrego Desert State Park, and 2 communities, which are both pretty small and in the desert area. And you might ask, what is Dark Sky Oregon doing? I showed you some of the things. We're primarily working on community outreach and the science. So we're giving presentations such as this one. We've occasionally used public radio announcements and online advertisements, public radio through Oregon Public Broadcasting. And we've created these animations as public service announcements, and when we had funds, we had them running on local TV here in Central Oregon, and we have them on our YouTube channel, and they're available for people to use. We have various events, tabling events and star parties. Like here's some folks at a tabling event. We've given away amber light bulbs and stickers, such as this one here. We're involved in incubating local dark sky groups in towns and cities across Oregon, because we, Dark Sky Oregon, represent the whole state, and we're trying to get local folks involved. And usually small towns and even big cities have a few people who are leaders, and they're kind of lost as to how to proceed, so we're helping with that process. We do have monthly Dark Sky Oregon meetings, to which we invite people who have recently inquired through our website. And the science part of this, we're measuring the night sky. Currently we have 74 photometers sprinkled around Oregon, which record every 5 minutes how dark the sky is. And once a year we process all that data into a report. And we support the certification of dark sky places by holding the hands of people who are trying to get their place certified, whether it's a community or a park. And we record the measurements of the night sky. We do inventories of their outdoor lights to help them figure out what has to be changed, and some other things. So the last slide here is what can you do so you can implement community-friendly lighting at home. You can learn more about light pollution. You can join Dark Sky International here. Once a month, they have very informative presentations, and you could become a dark sky advocate by getting involved with that group. You could also, and these are listed sort of in levels of involvement, work to certify a dark sky place in California. And there is actually a group called Dark Sky LA County, which you can find online. Or you could start your own dark sky chapter, whether it's for a town or a bigger area like the whole state of California. So thank you very much.
That was great, Bill. I know I have at least one question, but I do want to see if others do. So think of your questions and go ahead and post them in the chat or raise your hand like Marcia did. I'll kick it off though, Bill, with a question in terms of what we can do personally. So I'm a huge advocate of getting things adopted into the zoning code for my city. Are there ordinances that we could look at or consider and pass along to our elected leaders?
Yes, there are. Dark Sky International has a suggested code online, but it's actually fairly complex. I would suggest instead looking at a small city, for example, in Oregon, or Anza Borrego or Julian, which already has been certified as an international dark sky community. Look at their lighting ordinance. It'll be much more simple than the one that you'll find at Dark Sky International.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I know that that's going to be a personal topic of mine that I'm interested in. So Marcia, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, so thank you so much for this. I'm in LA County, so some would consider this a lost cause perhaps, but I'm glad to hear that there is an LA County group, and I plan on trying to connect with that and finding out what they're doing. But when I moved to the western end of LA County at one point, I lived up in Malibu before it became, more more lit up than it was 25 years ago. I lived there for a while, and it was such a relief at night. I mean, I really felt like I did have better sleep, and I was afraid at first because we're sort of you know, we're taught that lights help us be safer. Although I understand there are some studies that say that that's not necessarily true. So I'd like to hear about that if you have any data or studies on that. I've just heard about them, but not known where to find them. And secondly, I'm just wondering, I know I'm now back down in the valley of the of LA, but I live on the coast where we actually have a little bit of dark sky compared to some of the other places. And I'm just wondering if it matters. It seems like such a lost cause looking at your maps in some ways, but does it matter to try and get some of the big lights? Because to me, it's also an energy issue. I see us having huge amounts of lights in areas that are not necessary to have lights all night long. And, are there ways that you have found to try to encourage the energy companies, or even like the city of LA has LADWP, which we own and should be able to change? So those are just a couple of my questions.
Okay, first question about security at night. Yeah, it's a real issue, and you can, and people tend to overlight and cause glare for anybody coming up to their house. So, and it's a real concern, especially people who formerly lived in maybe a more urban area and moved to a rural area, and so they're naturally concerned. That it's a very common experience. But hopefully after a while they become accommodated to the fact that things are not necessarily more dangerous or hazardous where they are. And they could put a motion sensor on the light, and that'll be more informative than having bright lights that are always on. And you help the environment as well. There are studies that show, like there's a famous study that showed in city of Chicago lit up its alleys to try to minimize crime. And the result was there was more crime because the criminals could see better. And there was another study in UK, I'm not sure what town, I forget what town, but they had problems with breaking in into cars parked on the street in front of apartment complexes. And so they did an experiment where they dimmed the lighting or turned off the lighting adjacent to the complex, and they found that the number of criminal events was reduced where the lights were turned off, but they increased a couple blocks away where the lighting was still good. So another example where the criminals needed the light to do their work. So then as far as your living on the coast, yeah, every bit helps, and usually the big hitter lights are causing a bigger fraction of the issue than lots of small residential lights. So I would encourage you to work on reducing maybe start with the big hitter lights. Usually corporations are amenable to change. They're just not aware that they're causing a problem usually. And that's also the case with sort of neighbors who have bright lights that are causing light trespass. And it's always good to take the high road and assume that people are just unaware of the fact that they're causing a problem. And if you look on Dark Sky International's website, you'll find a web page on how to talk to your neighbor.
That's great. So Gloria also has a question. She's looking for the best hook to get local leaders interested in this topic.
Well, if you're in a rural area with partially dark skies and there's a potential for dark sky tourism, the economic angle is the strongest one. Unless you have fairly environmentally oriented city council people, then you could use the environmental argument for reducing the problem. Also, human health is a significant one not to be overlooked, because minimizing the blue light at night is a very worthwhile goal.
Great. And Maria, who it sounds like just had a great experience traveling and seeing the Milky Way as glitter in the sky, had a question about what's a compromised light spectrum for astigmatism. Says just change to daylight in the house to see better without glasses. So is there something for astigmatism?
Not aware of any. I'm unfamiliar with that issue altogether.
Maybe new research topic.
Maybe somebody else can contribute.
Yeah, we'll ask Travis. How's that?
Yeah, good idea.
And Gloria had a question about the amber lights. Are they also produced in LED?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. LEDs first came out with, the technology has advanced from 10 years ago where the only lights available were bright blue, white, bluish looking lights. Now you can get lights all the way down across the color spectrum into amber, and they're available amber lights. I had a picture of one in one of my slides. As far as I know, they're all made in China at this point. And so you can find them on Amazon. Amber lights, for residential use. And there are commercial, street lights of amber as well. Those are referred to as PC amber, which is phosphor coated amber.
So on that same topic, a follow-up question. It sounds like from the research, it's not just outdoor lighting. Like if I change the lighting that I use in my house, that's just one more helpful step that I could take for wildlife. It's not as big as the street lights might be, but incrementally it could help.
Yeah, that's true, Melanie. Recent research out of Germany showed that a surprising amount of light pollution comes from light coming out of windows in office buildings and homes. So I guess the solution there is to use curtains at night or drapes.
Blackout curtains, no less. Great. Now, Susan has a question, and she's involved in Sea and Sage Audubon, which is the Orange County chapter of Audubon, and has a question about whether or not there are handouts that are already developed that could be provided to cities, like city managers, city councils, that encourage them to adopt the Lights Out projects.
Well, there are, Dark Sky International has online downloadable PDF files of various topics regarding light pollution and what to do. I'm not aware that they have anything specific on lights out. Yeah, I would think that's something available in other, Audubon groups. You might look at Bird Alliance of Oregon. They may have something. Yeah, so yeah, maybe while you're asking the next question, I'll look for that Dark Sky International site.
Okay. And then Annalisa is wondering whether or not there's a brief but comprehensive video for corporate entities to capture the information you provided in the presentation, in case that was somebody folks chose to contact.
Well, the there are a number of videos online available, but the best one we've seen is one that's soon to come out as a training video from Dark Sky International. Several of us have been on the review of Dark Sky International's educational video program, and that's coming out later this year. But there's for corporate, you have to be pretty careful about what you're presenting so that that's a good question. Tell you what, let me do some research and I'll send you any links, Melanie, that I find and forward it.
Perfect. And one question came up back to Marcia about whether or not there's a link to the types of lights used at night in your home and an increased risk of breast cancer. Do you know anything about that?
Well, the thing that seems relevant is that, quite a few years ago now, I think in 2016 or so, American Medical Association advised you not to minimize the amount of blue light to which you're exposed in the evening and at night because of a perceived cancer situation. So that evolution, as our video tried to show, during the evolution of life on Earth, it was the blue lights in the day that as the sun came up and the blue light from the sky appeared, the production of melatonin drops off, and so you become more alert through the day. So you need bright light during the day to maintain that melatonin production reduction, so to keep alert. Then as the sun sets, the blue light goes away and your melatonin production kicks in. That's over millions of years of evolution on Earth, that's been the process. But now we're lighting the night with white lights that have blue component, which is causing that problem. So that's the basis of the American Medical Association's comments about minimizing. You're not turn down the blue nature of your computer monitors in the evening if you're expecting to have a normal sleep.
All right, there sounds like there's a research project in that one. Back over to Gloria, who lives in a rural area of Orange County, because there are a few that still exist. And the question, because there's a post office that apparently has an obnoxious light, is it better to switch out the light bulb to amber or to shield it? Is there one preferred over the other? Which one's more effective?
Well, shielded amber is ideal.
Both. Yeah. So it's not one or the other, it's both.
Well, shielding in the first place is a good first step, and you may get pushback because people perceive that maybe amber is not as secure, visible, providing enough visibility at night. But on the other hand, the counter argument is that, for about 50 or 60 years, we had sodium vapor lights as street lights around the world. And, nobody complained about the fact that there was some security issue. So these amber, PC amber lights, which are now available, LEDs, are equivalent replacement in many cases for those sodium vapor lights. And in fact, city of Flagstaff now has managed to convince the Arizona Department of Transportation to replace the older sodium vapor lights in the vicinity of their, on the west side of town, close to the observatory, at various interstate interchanges where their lights, where they still have those sodium vapor lights. They're replacing them with PC amber lights. So it's a big deal that the Department of Transportation has agreed to that. And we hope to do a similar thing here in Oregon.
That's great. And so the last question, Susan, back to C and Sage Audubon, is questioning, and I think you mean avoid. To avoid blue light inside our home, we really need to use amber light. That's the short of it.
Well, amber is for the inside. I think probably 2700 Kelvin is more desirable. It's a warm light, sold as a warm light bulb, at various places where you buy light bulbs, and that is gives you more color rendition. Whereas outside at night, amber is much preferred. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So those are all the questions that we have. I'm sure more will pop up as we process it. But Bill, thank you so much for your time. We'll get this posted to YouTube ASAP. And then Kathy, I believe you're the treasurer for Dark Sky Oregon. So we appreciate all that you do as well. And we'll be seeing you around. Thanks so much for your time.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Good.